Today we're diving into Valve's newly announced, not quite released, and long rumored, but possibly still half in development trio of hardware: the Steam Machine, the Steam Frame, and the Steam Controller 2. That's the pitch anyway, an ecosystem where your handheld, your couch PC, and your headset all live in the same digital friggin' bloodstream. And speaking of one digital ecosystem, jump into the Substack, the Discord, the Patreon, leave a comment and a like. As you guys know, we give out codes to people in the comments and like section. First up, let's talk a little bit about the Steam Machine. First, the Steam Machine itself is built on AMD's Zen 4 x86 CPU. It's got a semi-custom RDNA 3 GPU with 28 compute units and around 8 gigs of VRAM, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 system RAM. It's got 512 gigabyte or a 2 terabyte SSD. Also, the actual power supply is within the unit, and we're hoping that that cooling can keep up. Supposedly, it's around 6 times the performance of the Steam Deck. Valve says that at least, and that's a little like saying a chainsaw is 6 times stronger than a butter knife. Both cut. We just have to hear how loud one is when it's actually on. Performance-wise, it's promising 4K at 60, though they do say that's with AMD FSR upscaling. This is not native, and it makes sense when you look at the hardware. That's fine. Upscaling's the new normal, and for a device this small and this compact, it makes sense. Also, I do have to point out the GPU's 8 gigabytes of VRAM might bite it. Well, sooner rather than later. We'll just have to see exactly what Valve's price is, because Valve actually didn't announce a price at all, and really pricing is going to matter. I was actually impressed with the device's design. I do like boxy units like this. It's just a squared off design. It's got your front USB ports and a friggin' magnetic device on the front to connect and deconnect your faceplate, because apparently that's in now. It also has its own specialized Bluetooth connection device where they are stating it's got better latency. Steam Machine's history has always been an albatross around Valve's neck. It's a POS idea that resulted in worse sales. It was abandoned like a baby on a friggin' orphanage step, but honestly, a lot of what I saw here looked really good. Now, next up, we're going to talk about the Steam Frame. This is the VR headset. It wants to be a little bit of everything all at once. We'll have to see. And that's because while it does have some improvements, it also has particular idiosyncrasies that I think are actually interesting. So first of all, this is a standalone mixed mode headset. That means you can either run games on the very own Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 SoC that they have on board, or you can wirelessly stream to it with a specialized 6 gigabyte wireless dongle. Now, I don't really know if this will allow for you to be connected to it via, let's say, a USB device. I haven't seen that, a USB wire from your PC. Screen-wise, I like where they went with this mostly. 2160 by 2160 panels per eye. They went with pancake lenses, so things can be made a little bit smaller, even though the device, when you look at its size, is actually definitely last gen. It's 120 hertz standard. They also have what they say is 144 hertz experimental for this device as well. It weighs about 435 grams. One thing I do want to point out is while it's got eye tracking, it is inside-out tracking via 4 external cameras. Now, this is sort of met with a little bit of suspicion or worry from a lot of people. Regardless of the device, I have many of these devices that do the camera kind of tracking for the headsets. They do work quite well now. The idea that they've switched to using these cameras it's going to be interesting to see. One thing I do like is everything's supposed to run in this. You should be able to play any of your games in it in a virtualized 2D screen, as well as any VR games. They have a Proton layer baked in, so we'll be able to just jump into anything. And I like a lot of what I'm seeing here. I also got to talk to some people who've actually used the device, and they said that it's actually pretty good. It's a thinner eyeglass-like shape. It's lighter than a lot of the competition as well, and the eye resolution was good, though it was difficult to find the exact FOV for the vertical. Now, the CPU in this is a Snapdragon 8. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it will handle a lot of standalone apps. It's going to be able to handle lighter VR games. Honestly, it's going to be about wireless streaming for this, so that's going to be up to you. This is really two caveats that I'm wondering how that's going to really be met. I don't necessarily have an issue with wireless streaming of VR anymore because of the home setup, and a 6 gigahertz setup with a puck, same one that the controller talks to. I think that that's a good idea. If the implementation works, which I assume it will, that'll be a good way to get a stream. It probably won't be at the same bit rate as a native VR, but we'll just have to see if maybe they also allow for a wired connection. Also, there's comfort, balance, and audio I want to talk about. So, first of all, they're doing a modular strap. They have a detachable battery system that allows for you to basically take a battery off and put another one on, which acts as a bit of a counterweight. That's a good design decision. We've seen it in a lot of other VR headsets. They also have an improvement of the audio system from the original headset that was the Index. So, overall, I think this one's actually a pretty good design for a VR headset. I will say that because every time you put VR on, it's a little bit like a stamina meter, just slowly counting down. We'll just have to see how that feels wearing it for long periods of time. But overall, it looks like a really good idea. Now, the next thing up, though, is the Steam controller, too. So this is really, this is a weird one. Somewhere in a drawer, there's probably a Steam controller for pretty much everybody. But here we get dual trackpads that are remaining, now paired with actual good analog sticks using TMR technology, so you won't have to worry about stick drift. The layout is honestly, it's a little goofy looking, but it actually looks, at least to me, to be pretty comfortable. And the people I've talked to who've messed around with it actually said it felt really nice in the hands. A lot of people love those kind of things. And also there's a new haptic layer in the actual pads, which is going to give you more feedback for emulating mouse and gestures, they say. Now, connectivity for this, you have normal Bluetooth, you have USB-C, and you also have that low latency wireless puck that's actually in the machine. Valve states that it's sub 5 millisecond input times. But here's where I do want to talk about the caveats and the bonuses. I like a lot of what I'm seeing here. I think that the device it's pretty powerful for what they're trying to do, and in a particular price range, this is going to make sense. It just really does depend on that price range and how it's delivered. Also, no matter what you do, one of the problems, even with Steam Decks, is your VRAM. So it's going to be quite interesting to see where this lands. When it comes to the price, currently, the Chinese manufacturers of mini PCs are nailing it in price, and many of them are on, weirdly enough, large sales despite all of the issues going on with the economy. So when this launches in 2026, it'll be highly interesting to see where the price is on each device. And both are entering really unique ecosystems when you look at it. The mini PC ecosystem is absolutely filled to the brim, and a lot of people don't want to use Windows. There's going to be a lot of people who want to jump into that right away, regardless of the lower specs that you've got. The one thing I do want to see is how this sort of goes up against your 760Ms and that kind of thing, because they also have FSR. And while many of them won't hit 60 at 4K, honest truth is they didn't say what games, and that's really what matters, because shit, you could run Minesweeper 60 4K and just lie and put it on your box. We'll just have to see what that is. But I liked what I saw here for the most part. Don't know if I'm interested in it. We'll have to see in 2026. And upcoming here, we'll have to see on the prices. I think the Steam controller could end up finding a niche market, and I would be excited to see what they do with that. It could be great if that micro layer of extra sensitivity really works out. Now, the VR headset's probably the most interesting. VR is in such a weird time, ignoring the hardware for a second. The actual ecosystem for VR is in a very strange place. Even Unreal, to your normal game modulator or converter that they made, it didn't really catch on very well. And VR games just, they're not necessarily doing insanely well. But what I think this could do is just have a lot of people say, you know what? It's okay. I don't necessarily want to play a ton of VR games on this, but what I would like to do is occasionally stream some 2D games to it, and then you move on from there and you get people in the door via that. I think that's a good idea. But additionally, this is going up against the competition of really overall uniquely inferior glasses, the Nreal or whatever they're called now, and all of those. They try and they really do work quite well, but they're not going to work probably as well as this. And they don't have their own internal power, and many of them have a lot of idiosyncrasies. If Valve can nail it day one, despite the size and despite, you know, the idea of you maybe inside of your house wearing a VR helmet, it's not really that much crazier than being inside your house with a giant pair of 1980s shades that make you look like you're trying to rip off Tom Cruise in Top Gun. So regardless of that. But when I saw the announcement, it's pretty interesting stuff. It was pretty much exactly the rumors, though. We'll just have to see how it all comes together. What do you think? I'd love to know. Leave a comment. As you guys know, we try to give stuff out to anybody who's subscribed or leaves a comment or a like. Feel free to do so. Check out the Substack where we'll be talking about this later, or the Patreon, or the Discord. Peace out.